The first what if analysis technique that we learned today is data tables. You simply ask, what if, for example, I change the number of payments for my monthly payment? If I change this number of payments, what will be my monthly payment, right? We calculated monthly payment here, and you're all now familiar with the PMT function. It takes three arguments: the annual payment, number of payments, and how much you have borrowed, right? The present value. Now I have a question, and I want to see that if I change this number of payments, then how much I should pay monthly. Because usually they give you this option, right? Uh, you can either return the loan in a year or in like 8 years, right? So you want to see that if you can afford it. So look at how I structured my data to use one variable data table. Why do we call it one variable data table? Because I only have one variable that is changing. Right? I put that in the vertical in a column, right? So you can put it in a row too, but for me it's easier to put it in a column. So I put the values that I want to change in a column, and I just call it number of payments. And this is my PMT. But again, just note that the structure of the data should be in this format. Now, what you need to do before you able to use this data table is you should calculate the monthly payment using your fixed variables using a formula. It doesn't matter. It can be a PMT, it can be any other, it can be PPMT, it can be any other formula. It can be a very simple formula. It can be like C3 plus D3, right? But you first need to calculate that before you're able to use it here. So I have done this before, right? Let's get rid of this so it doesn't confuse you, these other numbers doesn't confuse you. So what I did is that I used this line of data. This was my APR. This was my. If I highlight this, you can see it. This was my number of payments, and this was my present value. And then I calculated that here, right? So I used this to calculate this. But I came here, and then I refer to this formula. Again, it can be any formula. I just say equal, and then I select this cell. Right now, this cell is referring to this formula. So these are the arguments. These are the variables for this cell. So I can get rid of these two so you can see that I only have these three variables which were fixed, and I calculated this. Now I want to calculate monthly payment if I change number of payments. So what Excel does is that it plugs in each of these number of payments instead of this number of payments and calculate the PMT. So because it starts with 12, the first PMT should be exactly this amount. So let's do this. Let's calculate it. So I put my the cursor here and then select this range, right? So you just select the data range. Now you have this structure. And I go to data, what if analysis, data table. And then it asks me, you see, I have two options. That's why I have a two variable too. But this is only one variable again, because one of them is changing. The one is changing, is in row? No. The one that is changing, I have them in a column. So I go to column, and Excel is asking me which one are you changing. So I should come back to my reference data, and I should tell Excel that I'm changing number of payments. I'm changing this variable, right? So if you think of it, Excel needs the variable that I put here, so it knows that, okay, every time I'm calculating PMT, I should use a different number of payment, right? That's what I'm changing. You say, okay, and there you go. It calculates all of the payments as I just said. This is exactly this one because the number of payment is the same. And of course, it's decreasing. Why? Because if you can pay in more time, you definitely pay less monthly. So what if I want to know that, what if let's say that the bank or that loan company gives me more options. They say that, okay, you can pay in like 8 years, but you can also take different APRs, different interest rates, right? And that's actually what's happening in the real world, right? They say that you can pay with this interest rate in a year or that interest rate in 5 years and so on and so forth, right? So I go to this fill option and let's fill out my number of payments. This step is 12 and I want to stop, let's say it's 96, just like the other table. Oh no, it was, I should have chosen the column, sorry. Didn't see that. Again, series is a column, 12 and 96. Okay, now I have my values, and let's say that for APR, I want to go until 9%. This is row, it's 0.2, and I want to stop at 0.9. There you go. So I have my APRs and I have my number of payments. So if I click on this cell, I want to know that how much I should pay if the interest rate, the annual interest rate is 5% and number of payments is 4 years, 48 months, right? And here, what if the interest rate is 7% and I should return the loan in 3 years or 36 months? Just like our one variable table, we need to insert the formula here. What formula I'm using? Well, again, I'm using this formula again, equal, and I just chose this cell, and then I exactly do the same thing, but this time I have two variables. I select the range, go to data, what if analysis, data table. Now I have two variables, right? Again, I come back to my original value that I put here, and I should pick those cells. And this time I'm telling Excel, okay, look at row, my row is interest rate, and this is the interest rate. And look at the column, my column is number of payments, and this is number of payments. So every time when I hit the OK, Excel should calculate, plug in these new variables, and then calculate the new PMT for me, right? Say OK, and there you go. Oh, it's because I already got a conditional formatting. I wanted to show this to you. I should have cleared that. Let's clear the formatting, get rid of this. Okay, so now you see that, for example, here I have APR for 30% interest rate, and I want to pay it in 2 years. This is my monthly payment. So Excel calculated all of that. But if you have a big table, it would be difficult to read it. Let's say that you want to only see those payments that are under $200. Why? Because that's how much you can afford, right? So you can easily see that what are your options. So I go to this conditional formatting and I say highlight cells less than, I say $200. It's oh, I shouldn't. I should actually select this range again. Less than $200, and I want to change the color. Let's go with this green one, and there you go. Now I can see my options, right? If I want to go with lower interest rate, I have these options. If I want to go with lowest number of periods, if I say no, I just want to pay it in 5 years, and I have these options. All right. Okay.